Free audio post-production by Auphonic.com.
Guten Morgen, Jenny hier. Ihr schaut den Einmischen-Podcast, hier wird Politik betreut. Und wenn ihr die heutige Folge unterstützen wollt, liked, teilt und abonniert diesen YouTube-Kanal. Andere Möglichkeiten findet ihr in den Shownotes, Steady, PayPal, Überweisung oder meine allseits beliebte Wunschliste gefüllt mit Büchern und Dingen, die wirklich Spaß machen. Und in diesem Sinne entlasse ich euch in die heutige Folge. Habt viel Spaß, gebt mir Feedback, kommentiert. Ich würde mich sehr freuen. Bis bald. Hello, dear listeners and maybe those who are watching us. I would like to introduce my guest today. His name is Giuliano da Ampoli, and he is an Italian-Swiss author and political scientist who writes in Italian and French. He was also an advisor to the former Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi and has published numerous books, including the best-selling novel The Magician in the Kremlin. This book was put into film recently, as I know.
Yeah, it was just presented at the Venice Film Festival, and it's actually by a French director called Olivier Assayas, but with mostly Anglo-Saxon actors, and Jude Law is playing the role of Putin, and which is a big compliment to Putin, except for the fact that he made himself very ugly to play Putin, so it's maybe less of a compliment. And then other very good actors. It's very faithful to the book, so I'm very happy with the film. I hope the public will like it too. But as an author, I'm pretty pleased.
Great. And today we will be talking about your newest book. It's more like an essay. It's called in German Die Stunde der Raubtiere. So the hour of the beast, power and lords.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it lords.
Yeah.
It was published in the CH Beck Verlag, and we are right now in Berlin in the rooms of this publisher. And it's hard to choose something to start about this book. So I will begin with the beginning. You start this book with a story about Montezuma II and his indecision, which doomed his empire. What connects this story with the present?
Well, my idea is that basically what happened when the first Spanish conquistadors appeared on the shores of Mexico is the emperor of the Aztec emperor of the time. He was the head of the most powerful state in the Americas. He had a huge empire, huge army, a capital city of 200,000 inhabitants, and his people see these guys coming out of mysterious sort of floating cities, these ships that they had never seen. And of course they look like humans, but at the same time they have these kind of magic sticks that produce thunder and fire and that can kill people. They have those shiny armors. They are riding strange beasts that seem to obey them. And so what do they know? Are they humans? Are they gods who came back? Are they? And so even if Moctezuma could have easily, destroyed them, of course, he would have thought maybe he would have lost a few thousand men, but he had a huge army. He doesn't really know how to deal with them. So he tells them, please don't come and see me. I'm okay where I am. But on the other hand, he sends huge gifts and things. And of course, I mean, in a very short time, his empire was completely wiped out by the conquistadors, even if they were very few in numbers. And I think this is what happened with traditional politicians and the internet oligarchs and conquistadors. They saw them appear. I know it because I was there. I was a political advisor, and they saw them those young kind of kids, always boys, with their hoodies, and they didn't exactly know who were these kids, and then they didn't wear ties, they were not traditional business people, but they seemed to be, having a knack for enterprising and innovation and all of that, and they seem to have magical powers, and so they treated them a bit like aliens, that they didn't really belong to their world, so they couldn't impose any power over them, regulate them, give them any kind of responsibility, and they would have those meetings, and they would ask them for things and never get anything, and in the end they would still have a selfie, and so politicians would be happy because they look modern and contemporary with those people. And the thing is, the power, the tech people developed so much since nobody imposed any rule on them, that basically they became the new power, and it wasn't just about business. I think now we understand that, of course, they made a lot of money, but at the same time, it was broader than this. It was a new system of governance, of relationships between people, of regulating societies, and I think it's wiping out the old liberal democratic systems that we have in place in our countries today.
Oh, that's giving me a lot of chills. But you write about those conquistadores with whom Montezuma did not know how to handle them. At the same time, our politicians in the present cannot handle those kids who become larger than life and more powerful than any country on this planet. And it's not just that they are aliens, they are just kids growing up in a world with power and money and never having heard the word no, never being put in their place. And that's the problem here, I think. And what I find interesting as well is that they found a politician like Donald Trump who also does not like the word no. So what's the relationship here? And where do we go from Trump and this relationship with the tech conquistadores in the future? Because there is an end to the Trump regime at some point.
Yeah, at least physically. But I think this is exactly the point. Meaning that this coming of age of these tech oligarchs who never heard the word no, it was gradual. It took a few decades, and for a long time, they pretended they would just, they weren't powerful enough. So of course they still had to align with governments and things, or at least pretend that they would be, they would be supporting like democratic governments and the people that were in charge, left wing, right wing, doesn't matter. And what we see now is that this has changed in the sense that we see the tech world. Many tech leaders, of course, Elon Musk from before many others, but it's not about one single character. I think it's more about the system as a whole, is much more aligned with and is converging with political characters like Trump and other predators. That's the predators I describe in my book. I mean, it can be people in democratic societies, democratically elect, like for example Bukele in Salvador, which I think is an important case, Milei in Argentina, Bolsonaro in Brazil, or far right leaders in Europe as well. It can be also with non-democratic systems. I talk about the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and others. And the point is not that they agree. It's not about, often these predator characters, the politicians, they're kind of pre-modern characters. They're all about they're nationalists, they're nativist, they're about roots, they're about restoring something, and this is not something that the tech people care about. But what they agree on is basically that they're outsiders, they're disruptive, they move fast and break things, which was Facebook's famous first motto, and they want to wipe out the old system. They want to wipe out the authorities the way we know them, not just the political class, but also the media, the legacy media, the journalists, the all form of authorities, and especially they don't want laws to stop them. They don't want rules to stop them. As you say, they don't want anybody to be able to say no to them for one reason, or they don't want counterpowers, checks and balances and stuff. And this is something they have in common. This is something that extreme leaders and tech oligarchs definitely have in common. So I think it's a natural convergence, and who knows where it leads us.
Again, really, really troubling. But what I think about is this idea, especially Democrats and politicians in the center have about the power of democracy and the power of capitalism and the power of economics. And they said something like that the idea of change through economic partnership will democratize China. And what we see is that China used the capitalistic system to their advantage, and they are playing the game wrongly, so the West says, because they are winning the game, but in a different way, not in the neoliberal capitalistic way. And now everyone is angry with China because they are winning, but in a more like autocratic, but also communistic way. And that's why everyone is angry. But at the same time, we have someone like former presidential candidate Harris, who just told in an interview with Rachel Maddow that she had always believed that titans of industry would serve as a guardrail for democracy. And I think this is a story as old as time. It's not something new. It's the idea Democrats and center politicians have about capitalism protecting democracy, when at the end of the day, capitalism does not care about the political system in any way, shape, or form.
I fully agree. Plus, we have historical precedent, and you have them in Germany, of course. I think it's very naive to think that business people and entrepreneurs and capitalists will race to the rescue of democracy. It's not something that works like that. It hasn't worked like that in the past, and there was no reason to think that it would work like this in this case. What is so I think, of course, Western leaders were very naive throughout the 90s and the years 2000 to think that it would be through the sheer force of economic and capitalist development that you would produce universal harmony. Already, it didn't work out at the beginning of the 20th century. I mean, you had the level of exchange and trade between Germany and France and the United Kingdom was huge at the time in terms of volume, and it didn't prevent the World War One in any possible way. And then, of course, before World War II, you had capitalistic, entrepreneurs and who would just align with dictators with absolutely no problem. I mean, we saw that in Italy, we saw this in Germany, and all of that. What I think is interesting today in the case of tech is that it goes a bit beyond that, in the sense that the power they have, and I mean the pull they have on society goes beyond economics and business. It's very different from an oil baron or someone who would control a huge industry or factories or things in the past, because it's something that is so much more connected to the daily life of each one of us. It's so much more granular and intimate. It's so much more, it's not just communication. It's, when you think of the internet, and you say it's a communication revolution, it's so much more than that. It's first of all an incredible instrument of intelligence and control and data collecting. It's first of all that, and it has such a power to shape our daily behaviors. Now each one of us spends several hours a day in the digital dimension, and that's a place where they are the rulers. When you move from the physical world, from the street, from your workplace, from even media, traditional media, newspapers, TV, whatever. When you move from that space to the digital space, you enter a different sovereignty. The laws of the land don't apply anymore. The laws of democracy don't apply anymore. It's kind of a sort of, I call it digital Somalia, in the sense that it's a failed state where there's no functioning institutions, there's no functioning laws or responsibility for anyone. It's just the rule of the warlords. We have and the warlords are obviously the owners of the platforms and the people who can exploit them best. And this is something,
maybe we need a digital Leviathan, like Thomas Hobbes wrote in the 17th century for the physical state. Maybe we need a digital
I think this
Leviathan.
Is exactly the point, in the sense that what we should do is impose the rules of democracy and the rule of law in the digital sphere. So you do need a digital Leviathan. And while what has happened is exactly the opposite, which is the no rules or the rule of the most aggressive and the most violent that works in the digital space has now contaminated our physical democracies, our public discourse, our even daily life in so many different ways. So we should have gone the other way. And that's why the Aztec politicians, I think, have a big responsibility.
What I'm interested in is you described how these predators from Silicon Valley think they are basically gods. They are all powerful, all knowledgeable. They are not part of the system. They are above the system, and that's because, and that's how they end up thinking they know everything about the system. At the same time, they are so far away from human connections themselves, from normal human beings, that they do not understand humans at all. So I will try to go to the point I want to make. So what world do they envision when they say they want to abolish the system right now? What do they want to destroy, and what do they want to build? Because just destroying something, that cannot be the end. Or do they not think about the future?
I think you're right when you point at this paradox of the fact that our social interactions are increasingly designed by people who don't really understand the point of social interaction, in the sense that they don't have, in many cases, I'm not saying that's the case in every, but it's really the case of most of them, where there's something basic about human interaction that they don't feel, that. Yeah.
And not understand. They don't even know the history, evolution of Homo sapiens. When Elon Musk says something like empathy is a disease, it's against the DNA of human beings, because we cared for each other even while we were still living in holes.
Absolutely, and this is really striking. It's, I think, the gap, and even the disproportion between huge power of these characters and even the mastery they have, of a world that we don't even understand. I mean, they know how to shape huge masses of data and very powerful machines. And on the other hand, if you hear them talk, or if they express their personal, philosophical, political views, they're at the stage of a very not, of a really not bright preteen, and it's this gap that's just terrifying in a way, because really they have gigantic power and very little understanding of politics, of philosophy, of the human experience in itself.
Is it because they are all men? I mean, all these people are white men who have never needed to grow up, in a way. And I don't want to be an extra extremist feminist or something, but it's obvious these are little boys who never grew up. It's more like Peter Pan.
Yeah, I fully agree. So I think not only is it just men, probably for a reason, but it's also just a particular type of man, and it tells you something when, I guess, some features of character, some of the talents were rewarded, like in an incredible way, and without the need to develop any kind of, other feature in other fields or understanding, and so the system somehow produced this overly powerful group of as you say, white men who really resemble a lot each other. I mean, if you look at the most powerful people in tech, you have the feeling it's like about 100 white men that more or less all live in the same part of the world, know each other, resemble each other a lot, have even fun in the same way, and which is totally, it's terrible. What when you look at even the
It's
way they
boring.
live, even the way they spend their money
Yeah,
or
it's
their way,
boring. It's really
just
boring.
it's really, it's I mean, it's really not what you would want to do if you. I was reading a book now. Actually, it's a pretty good book. By a former Facebook executive, and it's a woman writer. She was in charge, or part in charge, of public policy at Facebook, so that was for many years. So that's kind of an interesting role, and she describes for example, Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, and at one point his wife is expecting a baby, and he says, well, I might not be there for the birth because, and they say, well, why? She asks, well, why? Yeah, and he said, no, I do you have something in particular? And they say, well, no, I don't know, but something more important might come up. Yeah. So it's
What?
not even, and so, yeah, it's, I don't want to say, I think the world needs all kinds, and it needs people like them as well, but maybe not in such a powerful role and unchecked.
You have a part in your book about the French Revolution when two revolutionaries talk to each other, and one says, "We thought the revolution was a moment, but it was an epoch."
Yeah.
And thinking about this is those people want to break the old system. They want a revolution. They want to destroy everything. And they don't understand that the revolution does not stop. Robespierre had to find out that at some point, his idea of terror, of destruction, of building a new system only made everyone afraid and only cost everyone their heads. So they chopped off his head. So is it possible that these predators of Silicon Valley will end up not exactly like that, but in a way chopped off?
Yeah, I think it's possible. The point is,
So the monster they are building is going to eat them.
Yeah, I think it's possible. It's a definite possibility. The point is, yeah, who's going to chop their head, in the sense that, unfortunately, I'm at this stage not so optimistic that, there will be kind of a democratic reaction to all this and that they will be stopped. I think this might happen, but if it happens, it will only happen after much more distraction and much more, and much more chaos. And it might not even happen at all. Another possibility is that they get devoured by the machine they're building, simply. Who knows? I mean, some people think that the machines themselves will take the power. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but definitely, I mean, they are in a on a Faustian trajectory. They are really on. How do you? I mean, I it's a German word, so maybe I didn't pronounce it right. But it's they have done they're in the position of the Faust. I mean, of someone who tries to strike a deal with much more powerful forces and takes himself for God, and those stories don't usually end very well.
Yes, I mean, we live in new times, but at the same time, we are still human beings. And maybe I'm thinking inside the box of a political scientist, but there's always the real world. They are starting to build a dictatorship, authoritarian system, which is ruled by Donald Trump and his cronies. And at some point, the question of power will come up. And there are so many different groups who envision a different kind of future with different ideas that at some point the power struggle will come. And I do not see those 100 white little boys winning that power struggle because they have no idea what they are doing. And
Yeah.
there are other people who are much more much more driven by their ideas. And usually those people win.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see in the case of the states. I think what is happening is also that basically, even if they fight each other, the American system is now converging with the Chinese one in some ways. I mean, they are, in theory, of course, wrestling for world domination and all of that, and even in practice. But at the same time, they're getting increasingly similar in the sense that in China you have basically an autocracy that uses new technology to reinforce itself and to stay in power and to progress and to ultimately produce the perfect autocracy, which will be a system where the control is so granular over each movement and that basically, I mean, it will be the dream totalitarian state. This is, and the US was supposed to be something different from that, more like, of course, more democratic and lots of different flowers blooming and initiatives and stuff. But what you see now is that tech is also fusing with national security. It's also becoming something that is a lot connected to the military and to national security issues and stuff, and it's fusing with the sovereign political and military dimension, and it goes in the same direction. I think the tech ultimate goal is that to build a system that basically makes any kind of rebellion impossible or very difficult, because it will all take place in a virtual world where everyone will find their own satisfaction, and but no concrete means will be in the hands of anybody, and even if you have a strong opposition, well, it actually can't happen. So I don't know if this is what is expecting us. I think the idea is that you will have a system where people's opinion won't matter anymore, where only their consumer preferences will matter, where you'll be, and basically where people will accept in one way or another to be not free, in exchange for kind of like effective governance and possibilities of consuming a lot, which is actually the Chinese system in a not exact, and all this enabled by data and surveillance and that. So I don't know exactly how it plays out, but the alternative to this is chaos, rebellion, chaos, catastrophes, all sort of disruptions that are happening and will happen even more. Terrorist attacks that become more and more, powerful because they have technological means and stuff. But to me, it's a competition between chaos and control, chaos and surveillance. And every element of chaos will bring the demand for surveillance and control more and more to the fore. And today, the instruments for surveillance are so much more powerful than they used to be. And you don't just have the data, you also have the algorithms to manage it and to use it in a very effective way. And I mean, the only thing I don't really see is liberal democracy, the way we know it, surviving easily in this. But I hope I'm mistaken.
So there's no hope. Authoritarianism is unavoidable?
No, I think, for example, in Europe we're definitely not there yet. And I think we don't have any easy solution at hand, but we do have some hard, difficult solutions, but we can oppose this. And the fact that the predators are attacking Europe so violently all the time, this is another thing they have in common. I mean, Trump and Vance and Putin, of course, but also the tech people. Their arch enemy is Europe, and its rules and its system and all of that. And so, if we bother them so much, it means we're probably doing something right, even if with all our flaws and all our weaknesses, and we should try to bother them more. I mean, we should try to become even more of an obstacle. We shouldn't bend down. We should try to protect and to develop what we have. And if you look at the technology historically, the same technology can produce very different effects according to the context where it lands. If you look at the printing press, the effect in Imperial China was completely different from the one in the Europe of the Reformation, completely different from what happened in the in the Islamic caliphates. Same technology, 3 different developments. We should do the same. I mean, today, it's stupid to be against technology. It makes no sense. I mean, that makes no sense to be against digital or to be against AI. But can we have our social and economic model of adopting these technologies and developing them? We know there's a Chinese one. We know there's an American one. Can there be a European one that's compatible with our democracy and our way of life? I think it's possible. I think it's hard at this point. I think we're in a weak position. I think we lost time and lost opportunities, and maybe we keep doing so, but it's still possible. It's not something that we can't do.
What exactly should European politicians do now? I mean, I've just seen the debate in the Bundestag, the German parliament, and the attack of the chancellor against the Greens, who helped him get a really important change of the constitution through before he even was chancellor. And he's attacking and attacking them. And I see the PM of Bavaria eating sausages all the time, while the AfD is rising and rising in Bavaria. So what can politicians in Europe do? What must they do? And what would you tell them right now? What's more important?
Well, I think, as you say, I think the functioning of our political systems and the political incentives, even for politicians, are quite wrong and tend to lead you in the different in the wrong direction. So it's certainly not easy, but I think there is a space today for someone to stand up, because no European head of state and certainly no one in the European Commission or in the European institutions has done it. And first of all, acknowledge the situation. And, instead of having a technocratic approach, instead of saying, oh, well, yeah, we have to negotiate on Ukraine and then trade and this and that, but like pretending nothing is happening, and pretending that the predators push for regime change is not happening. There's just Putin who's really nasty, and we have to face him. But I mean, Trump and the Department of State, actually supporting the AfD, for example, in Germany explicitly, all this, we pretend it's not happening. No, we just have to focus on the technical issues and be nice to Trump, and it will all go away. I think it won't go away. I think the technical issues are just part of a much bigger picture, and it's political. And politics is not a competition of PowerPoint slides. Our politicians, they tend to think they were privileged. We were privileged because we grew up in a kind of peaceful, regulated society that had lots of flaws and things that didn't go well. But overall, you could say, okay, so the best PowerPoint slide wins. But it's not the case anymore. And what the predators offer is actually a form of political miracle. They say basically Trump and the others, they face systems that are stuck, that are blocked, where people have the feeling that nothing changes, that you can vote one way or another, there's nothing, the problems don't get solved, there's nobody has the power to do anything. And what they offer is action. They do stuff. And it's like in theology, really. In theology, the miracle is God intervening, bypassing human laws. And they do the same, they bypass laws and rules, but they say it's to confront the problems from crime and rising cost of life and or illegal immigration or also mass immigration or whatever. And if you're just facing this in a technocratic way, if you're just saying, oh no, but it's about, you can't do that, it's about defending the rules and the stuff, I think you're right, because democracy is about rules. So if you don't have rules anymore, you don't have a democracy anymore. But it's weak politically. Yeah. It's not enough. It doesn't generate enough energy. And so you might lose.
Yeah, that's the problem with the Democrats. They are still holding on to the old rules, not wanting to ruffle any feathers, while I'm sitting here and others in America sitting there and screaming, do something. Yeah. Stop being such a wussy.
Exactly.
Fight, fight, fight. Otto Brown would kick your ass. Yeah. So at this point, another example, Milei is just now failing with his idea of the chainsaw, and his buddies have to get him out of the hole he's digging for Argentina right now. And so they are failing. Their ideas are failing, and everyone can see it. If just politicians in the West, what is left of it, and media would just show it. They are failing. They are stupid. They don't know anything. For the end, I hope you could tell me today's ratio of West Wing, House of Cards, and Veep.
Well, yes.
And for everyone who's listening, read the book. You will understand.
Exactly. Okay, so we won't explain it. I would say, the Veep ratio is still very high. Frankly, if you look at the White House today and politics, I still think it's around 80%. So the problem is it's no longer funny. I think this is the real problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have a last message for my listeners?
No, the message is exactly what you were saying. It's about standing up. It's about not believing this idea that no, you can't do anything about it. It's just, this is just what, this is just how it works. And maybe we've been naive. Whoever thought it didn't work like that was just naive and mistaken. I think that's a big mistake. I think, as you say, they're failing. It's not a winning model. We have to stand up to it and fight it.
Thank you very much. I wish you the best with your book, and I hope everyone is reading it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Free audio post-production by Auphonic.com.